I was asked to talk about a couple of recent bird trips that I did, and I arranged them myself. One of them was a lot longer than the other. And so I'm going to share my tips and ideas. I hope that you can glean some good information for planning your own domestic bird trips. I first want to ask, how many people here have ever gone on a bird tour? That's where you fly in or drive in and you're taken around, maybe in a van and by professional guides. Okay, a couple of people in the room, and I'm sure there are people on Zoom who have done this. And I'm also going to ask, has anybody been to a festival, a bird festival? Okay, there we go. We have a few in the room again, and I have done both of those things. And I kind of like doing my own instead. There are some places, like if you're going overseas, especially if you don't know the language, and you really need to do, that's how you get access to those places. But here in the United States, we have a lot of great places. People come from overseas, our birds in these places. Okay, tours and festivals, which we talked about. I said everything is set. Once you're there, you're taken care of. And festivals, maybe you have to get one meal out. You have professional guides taking you around. Your lodging is already arranged. Your food is arranged, and they can be expensive. Okay. But organizing your own venture, you can usually save a lot of money and have a similar experience, or in some cases, maybe even a better experience. And I find that research and planning a trip can be really fun in anticipation. This is what my winter evenings are filled with, is what am I going to do next? There's also greater flexibility in travel and birding. If you're going on a trip, you know exactly when you have to go, and you have to go at that time. There's no flexibility if you have to work that week or whatever. And there's also greater flexibility in your birding. You can, if it rains one day, well, you can go to whatever place you were planning to today. You can do that tomorrow. It's not always the case when you're on a tour. And you can have greater control over food and mealtime. This is personally really important to me. Um, I I like to eat at certain times, and I really hate waiting. And I because of a stomach issue I have to finish eating by 7 o'clock, and sometimes that's just not possible. And the other thing I've found about organizing my own ventures and going places, I meet a lot more local birders there. And I have made friends. And I've also met people who do guiding, and they've shown me some really cool things. Oops. Okay. Now, these are some of the big questions that I have to ask myself when I'm planning a venture here in the US. Do I drive to the place, or do I fly and rent a car? Do I go to an Airbnb, or do I go to a motel? So, on one of my trips that I'm going to tell you about, I drove and I rented a car on my most recent venture. And what I did is I compared the cost of renting the car and flying versus driving and the lodging costs. And in both cases, it was really obvious what was the best thing to do. The other thing I considered is I just came back from Minnesota, and I really don't want to drive across the upper Midwest in February because I don't want to be caught in a snowstorm. Your transportation decision may also depend on how much time you have available for your trip. So if you have 1 week of vacation, well, that's as long as that's as long as you have. And if you have to drive 3 days to get there, you're gonna you're gonna not have much time for birding. And then something about the Airbnb versus a hotel. And I have learned not just to look at the per night prices, but how much does it cost after I've paid all the Airbnb fees, like cleaning, or sometimes there's another extra fee, or hotels and all the interesting fees they add on top of that. And those are the two things that I compare on this. Oh, and I will say it's much better if you have a friend or a family member where you want to bird and you can stay with them. Okay. Okay. And these are what I consider essential items. And the first thing is over here on the right, and you can see I have 3 reusable water bottles. I will tell you, at rest stops and in parks, both national and state and local, or I guess it's 3 of them, you can refill these. There are refill stations are spreading everywhere. I've found them in hotels as well too. So I'm urging you to ditch the plastic bottles. We really need to stop using those in our society. So that's one thing. Why 3? Why do I have 3? Well, when I was in Minnesota, I had 2 hot beverages because I drank through one and I wanted to have the other. And I always wanted a thing of water. When I was in the desert, I wanted 3 bottles of water because I went through them. Okay, second thing, it's kind of lurking here in the back for you people on Zoom. It's purple, and that's a towel. And I don't know if anybody knows the book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Okay, so we have some nodding in the room, and I'm sure some people on Zoom. Do you remember the first rule in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? No. Always carry a towel. That's exactly right. And so, I started doing this shortly after that book came out. And so I always carry a towel. And you know what? They're daggone handy. I have put this across my lap when I've had to eat a sandwich in my car because it was too cold to get out. I have used this to dry off when I've gotten wet. If there's something that needs to be cleaned, I clean it with my towel and then I wash it later. And it makes a really good tablecloth at some of those interesting outdoor, those picnic tables that you might not want to put your bread on. Okay, and speaking of bread, there's a loaf of bread here. And that's just to remind you to bring some groceries. It's a lot easier than here in Montgomery County. We're spoiled. We can always run out to a Subway or a Potbelly or a Panera or something after our birding. But in the places I went, there are rural areas. There are no grocery stores. And so I learned to buy groceries and have things with me. I will also give you my little hint of what do you put on your sandwich? Okay, vegans, I can't help you out on this, but I get tuna salad or chicken salad. Why that? I go get a deli container out of a grocery store. It's because it already has a condiment on it. I don't have to bring mayonnaise, little packets of stuff. I just put that on my bread, and I also carry lettuce, and I put that on there. Okay, and behind there, that green thing back there, that's a cooler. This happens to be one that I can fly with. I found it on Amazon. People had recommended it. It's a really good cooler. It flattens, and I'll take that, and I usually have some. I used to call it blue ice. Those little gel packs that you can freeze, and I have found that only in one place that I've stayed, there hasn't been a freezer, but most other places I've been able to freeze that every night, even in those little refrigerators in Airbnbs or in hotels. So that can keep your sandwiches cold. I did take that to Minnesota, but it wasn't to keep things cold. It was to keep them from freezing. Okay, and finally, remember your binoculars. And I have been on trips with people who have forgotten their binoculars. Okay, so that's just a little ad. Didn't do it the right way. Okay, so I had somebody ask me, well, where do you get ideas? Oh, where are you going to go birding in the United States, Cheryl? And I went, okay, I have to think about that. And the first place I go is printed matter because I'm not a digital native. I'll acknowledge that. And like there's a book up here on the top left that says it's the National Geographic Guide to Birding Hotspots of the United States. And you'll find a lot of good information. This book on the left, the yellow book, is Roger Torrey Peterson's Dozen Birding Hotspots. And I've had that book for 25 years, and it came out in 1976. It's dated, but their places are still there. And some of the information in there is still really good. There's some good stories in there. This book, this orange book on the right, The Birder's Guide to the Rio Grande Valley. Actually bought it here at one of the club meetings. And this also is dated. This is a book that there have been other editions of this book, but the places are still there. And so it gives me a place to start. Also at the top here, we have the Birding Warbler Road in the Blue Ridge Mountains. This is from Birdwatchers Digest. This is a magazine I subscribe to. So this is an interesting thing. It gave me something to think about. Do I want to go to Warbler Road in southwestern Virginia? And also just the ads in these magazines are helpful. This is the birdiest festival in America, and it's Corpus Christi. You can see it's from 2023. There's dates on it, and it's the end of April. And so I know that if I want to go to Corpus Christi, this is a really good time to go. Or I might want to go the week after or the week before. Okay. I don't just look at things in books, old books. I do look online. Sometimes the books take me to these places, but there are festival brochures. If you hear about a festival or read about it in a magazine, you can find the brochure and you can find out what dates are they're happening or have happened in the past. And you can see things like this Green Jay, and you can figure out, now this just says Sunday, but you can look earlier in the brochure and find out what the dates were, where you can find this in the Rio Grande Valley. I think you got it, Emily. Okay. And this is another one, is local bird club or Audubon listings. And those of you on Zoom can't see this, but I'm holding up a copy of the Yellowthroat, and it has all the listings of all the bird clubs, well, most of the bird clubs in Maryland that have bird walks planned. And there's one here, it says April 28th, Bombay Hook. And it has a description of waterfowl, early arriving shorebirds. So if I want to go see those things at Bombay Hook, which isn't too far of a drive from here, I know end of April, good time to go. Same thing with these bird club listings. This is from the Tucson Bird Club or Tucson Audubon. And I know that on February 17th, they went to the Mason Center, which is kind of their building, and Author Pack Park, which is a public park in Tucson. And so all these have descriptions as well too. So you can go there and see some good things, and you might be able to see in the description the kind of birds that they expect to see. Can you help me, Emily? Okay. And this is an example of something I found in a book. It was published pre-pandemic. I had no idea if some of this stuff was still going on. They talked in one of the books about, I used to look at Arizona. They talked about this Friends of the San Pedro River, and they said they had walks. And I was looking for this group. They didn't have a site, but they had a Facebook group, and they put their newsletter on the Facebook. And this is a recent one. This is from 2024. And I know that on Wednesday, February 14th and Wednesday, February 28th, they're going to do a bird walk. And it says what time to leave, what time to meet. So I know that if I wanted to, I could do this because this is a free walk. And the EOP, well, that's Environmental Operations Park. It's a fancy name for the sewage treatment plant. And we birders love the sewage treatment plants. There's all kinds of good things there. So those are possibilities that I looked at as well too. And another thing I did is I actually found information from canceled events that no longer take place. And this is from the Sax-Zim Bog Birding Festival. And the last one was scheduled in 2020. And that's when the pandemic began. And so they canceled this, but they still had their schedule up online. And I knew that, here it is, February 14th, middle of February, good time to go to Sax-Zim Bog up in Minnesota. Sax-Zim Bog is northwest of Duluth, and it's a famous place for owls and boreal birds. So the birds of the North Woods. Okay, so that's me on the left, and that's my friend Susie on the right, and that's us at Sax-Zim Bog about 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I love it. Center's open mid-December to mid-March, and this is one of the really cold spots in the United States. But you might notice that they don't have very much snow here, and in the Washington area, we got more snow this winter than they have, which is really it makes those winter sports people just. And they told us, we usually have 3 feet of snow, and we were in our Arctic vest. And we did stay warm, I'll say that much. But it did get above freezing a few days. Okay, so I went there and we were looking for this bird here, represented here on the sign. That's a great gray owl, a bird of the northern forest. And they occur in this area. It's one of the few places in the lower 48 United States that you can see this bird. And it had been seen for 3 weeks before we got there. And so I'm hoping that we get to see the great gray owl. Can you help me out, Emily? Okay, that was it. The map up next. Okay, so what's Sax-Zim Bog? Okay, this map doesn't really tell everything, but it's cool because the Friends of Sax-Zim Bog that you saw mentioned on the sign on the previous slide, they put this out, and it's really cool because it tells you where a bird. And these are about all the roads that are there. That's it. A lot of them are dirt roads. But up in the right-hand corner, you can see the green and the blue, and you can see over here to the left, year-round birding locations and winter birding locations. And up here in the upper right side, with the A and the I and the G and the B, those are places where it has a lot of owl activity. I'm going to keep going from here. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, okay. So Friends of Sax-Zim Bog has this incredible webpage. Okay. They want people to come there. This is a rural area that has had a decline in population. There's not really a lot going on there. They don't have a grocery store. There's one gas station, and I guess it's kind of like the place that you get your food, because it's a 7-Eleven, but it's not a very big one. But there's all kinds of information here. It tells you about Sax-Zim Bog. Plan your visit. So this was great information. I got my map. That map I showed you is right up here, how to bird the bog. And they don't tell you just in winter. They also tell you about how you can see some interesting breeding warblers and things like that in the summer. And this is the lovely Welcome Center with a little more snow than when Susie and I were there. And over here is the nicest outhouse you'll ever go to, heated, and it has artwork in it. Really nice, because the bog is flat and there's a layer of clay underneath it, and the land doesn't perk, and there's not a sewer system. So that they have outhouses. This one was. Oh, yeah. Francesca asked if they were heated. This particular one was. There were porta-johns in other places that weren't, and it was chilly. That's all I can tell you. That's pardon? Yeah. Where the towel comes in handy. Scott said, I didn't need a towel there. Okay. No, they were well supplied. They weren't cleaned, but they were well supplied. Okay. And so at this Welcome Center, they give you some really good information. The recent Sax-Zim Bog sightings. And it says great gray owl. And it tells you where on that map you can see where the owl has been, the great gray owl has been spotted. Snowy owl, I want to point this out. It says no recent reports. It hadn't been seen. A snowy owl hadn't been seen December, so we didn't expect to see one. Northern hawk owl. It says, Highway 7 near greenhouse, and you can even see the greenhouse on that map I showed you. And a whole bunch of other species here. It was really helpful. So this is actually closer to real-time information, because you're not going to find owls on eBird. It's one of those sensitive species that don't show up at least in short time on eBird. Okay, so one of the things that is also helpful is know the local app for reports of bird sightings. Now, I don't know how many of you use GroupMe. There are several GroupMe groups in the Washington, D.C. area that share information. It might be, hey, there are some long-tailed ducks off of Haynes Point, or hey, Dave Roberts found this bird, who knows where. And there's all kinds of really good information. There's also discourse. Discord. Thank you, Scott. Discord. Also, in more and more states are adopting this. And in fact, in Minnesota, most people use Discord, but not in Sax-Zim Bog. They use one called Telegram. And it looks like some of the, oops, went the wrong way. Want to go forward. There we go. This is what Telegram looks like. It's very similar to what we have. They all work about the same, and you can mark exactly where you are. It's kind of like dropping a pin. And it's not just for birds. There's some cool other creatures out there. Here's the short-tailed weasel ermine hunting in the culvert north side of the road. I don't know what the same spot is, but it tells you where the feeders are, and the pine grosbeaks and sharp-tailed grouse-leck. That was it. I missed that one, but that was pretty cool too. Okay, in here I'm going to show you some birds that I saw. Evening grosbeak, really nice. I love these birds. I love the gray and the gold together. And here's a male evening grosbeak. His bill's a little dirty from chowing down at a feeder. And then there's owling. Okay. And this is what owling looks like. And Sax-Zim Bog, this is one of the roads. It's usually covered by a lot of snow. It's scraped and smooth, and you can't see. There's a ditch to the left. You can't see the ditches, I've been told. So in this case, we were just on some really nasty washboard roads. They had defrosted, they had rain, the washboards appeared, and then it froze. So there was nothing that the county could do to smooth out these roads. But here we are. And one of the rules in Sax-Zim Bog is you always park on the same side of the road. Doesn't matter which side, but if somebody's parked, you need to park on the same side. And we're out here. We've been out here for a while. This is about 7:30. And you can see there's another car coming. And it's really important for us to let the locals come by, because they use these roads too. And they get grumpy when birders are parked on both sides. But we're walking up and down here looking for an owl. And, there's some people out here with their big lenses. We didn't see an owl. So, and this is what our car looked like after going. Yeah, this was really nasty. But we did see an owl. This is a northern hawk owl, and it was off the side of a paved road, and it wasn't bothered by us at all. Now, we birders and photographers were on the opposite side of the road from the owl, and it just sat there as cars whizzed by, and as this huge train carrying a lot of iron ore came by. This is in an area near the Iron Range in Minnesota. Okay, so that's the great or the northern hawk owl. Oops, went back. There we go. And it was so unbothered by us that it pounced down on this little rodent. It's called a vole. And we'll go forward again. and it ate the vole. And oh, I finally found out what a vole was. I didn't know. It's a mouse-like creature. It's a rodent, and it has a short tail, and so that's what makes it a vole. They reproduce exponentially. It's a good thing the owls come up and chomp these down. There's a lot of food for meat-eating predators. Yep. And then there were crossbills. We were at where we were staying. There were feeders, and most of the time those feeders were empty. But we came back for lunch one day, and I just love these birds and how their bills are crossed. Okay, and this is a pine marten. That's Marten, a pine marten. And this is actually a feeder for birds, this empty log. And you put peanut butter on the inside. Oh, and this creature just loves it. And so the pine marten will come out and give you a show and lick up all the peanut butter. And this is another one. This is an ermine or a white weasel. It's a very small creature, and it's in a feeder too. You probably can't guess what this feeder is. This is donated by local hunters, and this is a deer rib cage. So this, I know it's really weird seeing them out there with nothing on them. Chickadees love them, and so do these ermines. Oh, daggone, I gave away my excitement. Okay, I was there on the 12th. I saw that no snowy owls had been seen, but it was, it wasn't Super Bowl Sunday. It was Superb Owl Sunday, and birders know that. And yes, I spotted the first snowy owl that had been seen there in months. Susie was driving, and I was looking and said, "That looks like a snowy owl on top of that phone pole," and it was. That was kind of fun. Okay. And there's always a surprise. Well, you can see back. You can see that this is in the middle here. This was my safety shot in case the bird moved, and it did. This is a Townsend solitaire. And this was just an exciting thing that people in Duluth were seeing in a park. It was in a place called the Rose Garden. And I want to tell you, the idea of going to a place called the Rose Garden in Duluth, Minnesota in February did not excite me, but I'm glad we went there. And we found the Townsend solitaire. Okay. And that's the end of Minnesota. Yep, going the wrong way. Okay, and then I took a big trip in 2023, and I went out and I stayed for a month in Tucson because I wanted to see those Southwest birds. And I love saguaros. Okay, I went to a bird festival in August in Tucson, and I was enchanted by all those armed cacti, big ones. Okay, and this is the route that my friend and I took. Again, my friend Susie decided to travel with me. She likes to travel a lot, and she loves to drive, and that's really handy to have in a friend. Okay. No, I was asked if I rented a car. No, this was with my hybrid. It was this is one where I looked at the airfare and how much it cost to rent a car for a month, and it was astronomical. Okay, this was I hope things have gotten a little bit better with the price, but there was no question. And these are some of the resources I used. Again, books. This is one from the ABA on the right, A Birder's Guide to Southeastern Arizona. This gives you ideas of taking loops around places and what you might expect at different seasons. And this one's put out by Tucson Audubon, and it's Finding Birds in Southeast Arizona. Again, a little dated, but it has great information about how to bird and what to expect, and at what elevations to find things. And that's what the map in the middle is. And I decided that that's too complicated to go into right now. Okay, so my strategies in Tucson is, first of all, I joined Tucson Audubon. And the cool thing about it is it's like the Montgomery Bird Club. The members get first dibs on the field trips. And Tucson, it's so, there's such congestion. There's so many birders who want to go out with the trips. You get to pick 2 trips per calendar month. Well, I was there from late March to early April. So I got to take 4 trips. So that was definitely worth my money. Their county also has bird walks. It's Pima County. And I had to pay small fees to sign up online. It was about $5 each. That was pretty good, I thought. I also went to a famous place among birders. It's called the Patton Center for Hummingbirds. It's run by Tucson Audubon. It's free to get into. It's about an hour's drive from Tucson. And there are volunteers there who will help you identify the hummingbirds that come to the feeders, which are pretty close. It's a great photography place. And then I did this bird walk at the Patagonia Sonoyta Creek Preserve, which is just down the road from the Pattons. And that's a place owned by the Nature Conservancy. That was $8. And I saw so many things. I got lifers there, including gray hawk and zone-tailed hawk. Okay, here's some of the birds I saw. Well, it's hard to go to Arizona and miss Roadrunner, the greater Roadrunner. This is not the best picture, but I never did get a better view of one. Oh, let's go back here. Okay, this is a bird that members of this species have been seen in the mid-Atlantic this winter. And this is an ash-throated flycatcher. That was also a lifer for me. And on one of these webinars that I listened to about birding in southeastern Arizona, they said, okay, you need to go to this golf course. I'm thinking, going to a golf course? Okay. And as you're coming on the road in, stop at the barbed wire fence and look at the meadowlarks. Well, daggone, there they were. And you can't really tell from this picture, but you can tell from this picture, even though it's a little blurry, there are no dark dashes in the yellow area. And this is the newly split off species called the Chihuahuan meadowlark. So that was a new species for me as well. Then you go to Saguaro National Park, and maybe you'll see, like I did, this Harris's hawk perched up there. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, I'll just stop here and just say this is the robin of the Southwest, or the cardinal of the Southwest. This is a Pyrrhuloxia. Okay, and we'll go back maybe if we can. Okay, and that was my surprise bird again. It's another Townsend solitaire. And I didn't expect to see it in Duluth, and I didn't expect to see it in a saguaro either. Okay. We can go up to past the Pyrrhuloxia. Okay, and this is a scaled quail. I saw it at the Patton Center. And finally, this bird, you can see its bill, its beak is open, and she is gathering some spider web from this little opening in this pine tree. It's a broad-tailed hummingbird. And she's very special because she was the 500th species of birds that I've seen in the United States. And this is my friend Kathy, who I met in Tucson, and she brought little cupcakes for celebration on that. I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, so after Tucson, a friend flew out and we drove to Big Bend, and then we drove home. Big Bend. It's an amazing place. Okay. It is a huge national park that is the most remote of any in the lower 48. It takes 5 hours to drive there from any fairly decent, any commercial airport that would be either in El Paso or in Odessa, Midland. So 5 hours. And let me tell you, their car rentals are really expensive. I also looked at that place too. It's a beautiful place. This is a formation called the Window, and it is these are volcanic rocks. This is from a volcano, and they look over mountains over here that are actually sedimentary. And this is a famous place to go in the Chisos Mountains. Okay, I had a strategy in Big Bend too. Terry and I had talked about this more than a year ahead of time. And because I asked her, she said, I want to travel. And I said, where do you want to go? And I'm like having my fingers crossed. She says Costa Rica or maybe Panama or some other interesting place. And she said Big Bend. And I just said, let's go. And we just, and we talked a lot about this, and we decided that we wanted to stay there. We wanted to stay in Big Bend because other places to stay are like an hour's drive or at least 40 minutes drive. So we thought it's worth it. We're going to splurge on this. And we did it on weeknights. We did it Sunday through, and we checked out on Friday because we wanted to try to avoid weekend crowds. And we brought groceries because there's no grocery stores in Big Bend. And we had breakfast in our room. And what did we have? We made oatmeal in the microwave. And then we had lunch in the field. And we birded in the park 3 days, as suggested in one of those books. It was an older book. And, we did Monday on the east side. We stayed in the middle around the Chisos Mountains on Tuesday, or I'm messing up the days. Anyway, and then the west side. And there's a really cool bird there that only occurs here in the United States. It's called the Colima warbler. And we had plans to go and climb like this really steep 3 climb early in the morning to find this bird. And her knees were bothering her and she couldn't do it. And I said, okay, let's do something else. So that means I have to go back to Big Bend. I always try to have the flexibility in time. Okay. And then although we had our breakfast and lunch taken care of, we ate at the lodge. We did to-go orders because of COVID concerns. And we didn't want to have long drives, an hour out to a restaurant, an hour there and an hour back every night. We wanted to just be able to eat, get ready for tomorrow, and go to bed. Okay, and this is one of the things I saw in Big Bend. I don't have a lot of pictures from this because my friend took all the pictures and said she'd share them with me, and she hasn't yet. But this is a curve-billed thrasher, and it has all these fairly dark dots on its belly. This makes it the eastern subspecies. You can also find these in the Tucson area, and they're a little bit lighter underneath there. I think this is a yucca that it's perched in. And here is a Say's Phoebe kind of looking at us there. Kind of reminds me of phoebes in our area that nest under roofs. Can you help me out, Emily? Okay, and this is the last of Big Bend. Great scenery. So if you have a spouse or family members who don't really groove on birds, you can just set them loose on the scenery. Okay, and we went eastward then into through Texas. We went to the hill country that's kind of in the middle, kind of west of San Antonio. We saw the golden-cheeked warbler and the black capped vireo, which are really only found there. And they did not cooperate for pictures. And then we went to High Island, which is outside of Houston. And Anahuac National Wildlife Refuge, which is just up the road from High Island. Still have a little trouble here. Okay, strategies. Same food strategy. And we, for some of these areas, we brought breakfast and lunch food into a rural area that has no grocery stores. We stayed both in Airbnb, and if you go to High Island, go to the High Island Motel. They love birders. And it looks sad on the outside, but it's really clean and beautiful on the inside. And I also bought a discounted beach parking pass because I had planned to go. There's a barrier island. It Galveston's to the left, and the Bolivar Peninsula is to the north and east, I suppose, between that, and then the Houston I don't know if it's the Houston ship channel, but the waterway that goes to Houston is there. And it's lots of shorebirds. But we discovered that we didn't have enough time. Something came up with her family and we had to leave. We couldn't go to all three places. So we had to put aside, despite my beach pass, which, you know, costs $5, that we would only go to High Island and to Anahuac National Wildlife Refuge. Next slide, please. Okay, this is High Island. Oh, if you have a chance to go there, this is owned by Tucson Audubon, or excuse me, by Houston Audubon. It's set up for photography and for bird watching. There are little, I don't know what to call them, shelters, I suppose, on three sides. So you're not in the rain, you're not in the sunlight. And you have great views of this island across the way. That's a rookery. And the birds are just jammed in there. And, you know, there's snowy egrets here. There's a little blue. There's a spoonbill here. I think there's another one lurking back there. There are cormorants. There are anhingas. It's just mind blowing how many of them are there. Another place that High Island has just around the corner from all this is a walkway. It's the Canopy Walkway. It's like a big boardwalk, and it's almost at the top of the tree level. Next slide, please. And I saw a warbler there. I've never been so close to one. It was unbelievable. Now, the bird didn't stay still. You can see this is not quite very sharply focused, but it was a sight to behold. And there were a whole bunch of migrants. And the reason that they're there is, if you think about the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, a lot of birds start their migration across the Gulf of Mexico there. And this is the shortest distance they land in High Island. And so they are just jammed full of great birds, easy to get into. And this Anahuac National Wildlife Refuge just up the road, there are just a zillion water birds there, a lot of shorebirds. And these are fulvous whistling ducks. And that was also a lifer for me. Okay, this is coming to an end. We've been patient. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's all my bird pictures. And I hope that I have given you some ideas that you can incorporate for frugal yet lots of fun and optimal birding here. And you can do it too. And that's all. Thank you. Oops, wrong way. And now, are there questions? And as well as on Zoom, here in the room and in Zoom, any questions?
I was just going to ask what kind of camera you were shooting with.
Oh, that's a really good question. A cheap one. How about that? It was a DSLR. I have problems holding cameras, and so this was a Canon Rebel with a, what was this, 100 to 300 zoom lens. So that's what I was using. Some of those pictures were actually iPhone pictures. The ones from Big Bend were iPhone pictures. There was a question in here, I think. The island, High, H-I-G-H, not low, but High Island. It was called High Island because it's a salt dome, which are features that are in the Galveston, Houston area, and they often have oil underneath them. They're salt domes. Okay. Anybody else in the room? Scott has a question over here.
How long in advance
George, come over here.
The reservation for the Big Bend Lodge?
Okay, that's a really good question. And a lot of people think you have to do it really early. And that's what we did too. And so a year to the day before we left, Terry made our reservations. So that's what we did. Apparently you can occasionally get in because they have cancellations. And I've seen other things on social media that you can usually find a place, but you may not have a place every night. Okay. Francesca says it was a 5-hour drive to Big Bend. Was it worth it? And oh yeah, I'd go back in a minute. I want to go see that warbler. I would say the scenery and the birds were just incredible. It wasn't very crowded when I was there. 5 hours, I know, and that's just from the airport. Okay, another question.
This may be a hard one to remember. You saw a lot of great birds, but where did you eat the best food?
Oh, that's really easy. Thanks for asking that question, Paul. It was actually in Tucson, and I had just retired, and the people who I worked with knew about my plans for this trip, and one of them is a foodie, and she looked up this restaurant called Tumerico. And it's considered one of the best restaurants in the United States now, but she gave me gift certificates for it. It's a vegan restaurant. It was really good.
Cheryl,
Go ahead.
when I've gone to conferences from work, I've looked up I don't know if it's an app or a service, but it's called Turo.
Turo.
And it's actually much cheaper than renting a car like via the airport, because it's actually the owner of a car that rents their car out, and you talk through the app with, you know, what time you're going to be there, what airline you're going to be going to. They literally drop the car off to whatever gate you're at and let you know that the car's there and the description and so on. It was very convenient, and it was much cheaper. I've used it a few times.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. That's an excellent suggestion. Turo, Turo. It's kind of an Airbnb for cars. And actually, Susie and I had signed up for one. And she decided at the last minute that that's not what she wanted. And to make a long story short, we paid more money for the car, but it was a hybrid, and we didn't pay much at all for gas. Other questions or comments? Okay. Yes. Somebody asked if this PowerPoint would be available, and it will be. It's going to be a video that will be posted online at the Montgomery Bird Club site. Other questions? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Nathan. Yeah, that's right. The Galveston and I would even say High Island migration was part of the movie The Big Year. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I thank you for your attention, and I wish you some great birding adventures.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. That was really inspiring and lots of good ideas.